And that said, Philip, do we have any questions? And do you want to kind of start us off, pluck some from our chat, and then we can open the floor up?
Awesome. So I want to start out with some questions for Jason. Jason, some questions came up throughout your and Cam's part of the presentation. A couple different people asked about whether album artwork is necessary, as well as, if we have any suggestions on how to feature an artist, but still be for a whole hour, like a spotlight on 1 hour, but being able to remain compliant. And that's something that you and I have talked about before, Jason. So I wonder if you could speak to those two kind of questions there.
I mean, so album artwork, as far as the question specifically for album artwork was around what?
It was kind of about, the question was about whether it's necessary or not. And I thought we could talk about what metadata is required as compared to what is not required.
Yeah, it's not required by, copyright law, like track and artist info is. So there's that. So there's not like a legal obligation for it. Obviously, it's something that's important. It is something. I mean, we're actually working right now on a fix for a lot of the live stations where the album art's been pretty crappy. I think, I'll just straight up say that as far as the number of hits that we get on it. So we've been focusing on that. We've been pushing out a couple of fixes for that. So that stations that haven't, that aren't uploading tracks where you can actually just put the artwork in, but the live ones, which we're, hitting Apple for through their API, we've worked on that, and you should see if not even literally right now, over the next week, huge improvements on that. So, I think album artwork's really important. It's going to be even more important as we do more distribution across different mediums. For example, Chromecast onto, large screen, TV screens and things like that. That's where I think that's where it's kind of the most important. The bigger the screen is, the kind of the cooler the artwork is, to me at least. And then what was the second question?
Yeah, it was someone had a concern about how to feature an artist for an hour but still be in compliance. And again, I know that's something you and I've talked about before.
Yeah, that's the performance complement, which, that unfortunately that's just something that is right now in the DMC or in the DMCA, I believe. And so there's not an easy way around any of that. Some people will do things like you can feature an artist and maybe they're in a number of different bands, their solo work, different bands that they've been in, cover songs, somebody that's covered that artist's song. Those are the types of things that you can do to get around it. You can't like terrestrial stations do still, you can't do, I'm playing, side 1, side 2 from Dark Side of the Moon. You can't go do that right now. The NAB, inked a deal directly with the license, with the labels that does allow them to work outside of the that recording complement, that performance complement. So they do get to still do that because of, the power of the NAB. Whereas the internet radio guys, we're kind of, unfortunately can't do the same thing, and hopefully we can change that. I don't think that that's something that's going to change anytime soon, but it is something that's just kind of archaic. I think, the idea around that was that if you played, like I said, a whole half of an album or a whole album, that somebody could record it digitally and have a perfect digital copy of it and distribute it. And that was really where it comes from. And I don't think that that's quite as much of a concern. There's people, no one even really wants MP3s anymore. For the most part, they're subscribing to a service, or they're listening to, or listening to free radio and things like that. So I think, that's just an archaic piece of regulation that needs to change.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. And a couple more have come in while we've been talking here. And I guess Jason and John could both probably speak to it. And it's something that we've heard plenty of times, either in the tickets or also on that feature request portal that Justin was showing earlier. Folks that are familiar with the previous Live365, a lot of folks would like to see a dedicated encoder or a dedicated Studio Live365 kind of mobile app to help folks be able to go on the air when they're remote. I know it's not immediately in our timeline for this year, but I'm wondering if you, Jason, or John were able to speak to that as far as if we have any plans for that coming.
I mean, I'll jump in. But yeah, so it's definitely something that, we've looked at, we know that we need it. We've talked to other people out there that maybe have solutions that we could buy or, even merge or acquire. We've talked about building it ourselves. I have product requirement docs that we've built internally around these, encoders, having an encoder for us, building an encoder. So I would say, even though it's not something in these next two quarters as far as the roadmap, it is something that you will see, movement on by realistically this time next year. So it's still a ways away, but it is something that's up there. And definitely, if you feel that this is something that's huge, that feature request portal, that really does, like Justin was saying, it does inform us as far as how we a lot of times prioritize the features, right? We're listening to you guys. So the higher up those things move on that feature request, that will definitely builds the argument and helps us prioritizing, and that's the way to get them at a higher priority.
Agreed. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Jason. And Justin, we did just have a request about the feature request portal. If we're able to share the URL in the chat one more time, I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will actually share that in our URL right now. I'll share all those links I had. And Jason was well said, if we, the more we upvote that, if we can rally that, and, that's a very important thing for our community for sure. That is the huge precedent that takes over. And that's how we adjust roadmaps. And that's how we prioritize things that we're building for folks. So definitely encourage you guys to upvote that. If that's something very important, we would love to hear it. And it's for sure something we would love to build.
Right. And I see we have some ongoing chat about the AAC, and John did speak to that point as far as where we're, intend on going with that with the product roadmap. And that's a very popular one on the feature request portal. So, keep on bringing that feedback in. It goes directly to the CEO, as you folks see here. And we're very aware of bringing that feature to life down the road. Matt, there's a couple questions for you if you're available.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Some folks were looking at some of the packages and prices that you mentioned, and the ones that you were showing were with ads, with our ad insertion. And so some folks had questions about how someone might monetize on the BC4 or BC5 packages, or maybe what the prices are looking like if they don't go with our ad insertion. So no ads as well.
Understood. Yeah, I showed that briefly at the end, the no ad service. But, again, our legal team, Jason included on Live365, has worked with the performance rights organizations. And here in the United States, Live365, and this came out last year. I've been saying this is a big deal. And I'm sorry if that sounds funny, but it really was that for the first time in Live365's history, even going back to the 90s, internet radio stations are now allowed to monetize their own content. There was a time when you couldn't, unfortunately. And so, yeah, absolutely do that. I would like to point out, that that can be challenging, and I understand if the idea of doing the ad supported package is going to create a revenue stream and you find out that it really hasn't, it essentially we're crediting your account. So if I'm down to, like, let's have this on another summit. Let's talk about best practices to help monetize your stream with users. The one thing that I will share, and I know that this isn't the question that was asked, is that and this goes back to my radio sales days. I say, find the fan, right? You know who your listening audience are. If you have a fan that somebody's emailing you or tells you that they love you, and it turns out that they own an auto body shop, hit them up. Don't tell them you can get some advertising, and you're gonna find the barrier to entry to get someone to pay you to have an ad on your stream is a lot lower when it's a fan of your station, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the non ad supported pricing, broadcast 1 through broadcast 3 is exactly the same. There's no change to that. Broadcast 4, if you do not want to play ads, the ad free is $674. and the ad supporting cost of $9.99 for the 20,000 TLH is $13.30.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. Cam, I got a couple questions going in your direction if you're available.
Sure, bring it on.
We had a couple questions about recommending or suggesting an encoder for live streaming. And we did have someone mentioned possibly having an issue between wide orbit Live365 with Rocket in between. That's something we could definitely address either with Cam directly in a support ticket. But generally, like best suggested encoder for a live show on Live365.
It all depends on what you want to do. If you're wanting to, play, music at the same time and have a full-on automation system, my go-to is always Station Playlist. There's a bunch of others that we recommend as well. Sam Broadcaster Radio DJ is out there. It's free, and then there are some basic. There are some other encoders out there too that are basic and will take an audio input and send that out to Live365. Rocket Broadcaster, absolutely, that's one. There's another one. It has kind of a funny name. We like to laugh about it around here. It's called Butt, BUTT, broadcast using this tool. That's another great one. Again, it all depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to, fully automate a station and play music or whatever, or if you're just, broadcasting a live event, a church sermon or a sporting event, it's all based upon whatever your needs are as well. So hopefully I answered that okay.
Definitely. I got a couple more, and you and I can probably tag team them pretty quickly.
Sure.
Someone had noticed during your demo when you scheduled a clock wheel, you had set it to go until 2 p.m., but then there was a track that was going to start that was going to play over past the 2 p.m. marker. Can you speak to that, or do you want me to speak to it?
I'll let you jump in if necessary, but I think what happens is it schedules the track to start before the 2 p.m. hour, and it just kind of overlaps a little bit.
Exactly. Well, then what will happen is it'll fall back to auto DJ. And so if you wanted that event to stop at a certain time, you would need to schedule a hard stop or maybe kind of tweak the selection that you're calling into those clock wheels so that you had a more concise or more accurate event. I'm pretty sure that's what was happening in that demo.
Yep,
and
exactly.
And someone else had asked, Ronnie had asked, if you want to delete a song that's in a recurring clock wheel, will it delete? Go ahead.
When you're making the clock wheels, you're not actually scheduling the actual songs in the clock wheel. You're putting them in a category. So if you delete a song from your library, it deletes it from that category. The category is still scheduled, but that song will not be in it. So that to answer your question, technically, yes. If you delete that song from your library, it's not going to be in the clock wheel anymore.
Mm-hmm. And additionally, the clock wheel track lists for recurring events are not generated until 12 to 24 hours before the event is going to play. And so you could make adjustments to the way your media is tagged up inside of the library. And then when the clock wheel generator goes to populate the next event, it wouldn't pull those tracks into the next events because you had changed whatever factor it was that you were changing. And so that's also why we tend to steer people. A lot of folks will start out with auto DJ and playlist, and then we kind of steer people towards clock wheels because of how flexible they can be.
Very flexible.
If you had a scheduled recurring playlist event, you would have to delete all the events, edit the playlist, and then reschedule them. But if a recurring clock wheel event, you can kind of tweak the library, and then future clock wheel events in that series will have an updated track list. So it's a really nice way to have flexible events coming up there, or dynamic events is what I mean to say there.
Real quick on the encoders again, I totally forgot to give some love. I'm seeing this in the chat. I forgot to give some love to our Mac users. I am and I feel bad for this because my Mac is my daily driver. For Mac, if you're looking for an encoder for Mac, that one of the software I talked about, but that is available on the Mac. If you're looking for a full-on automation, Megaseg is awesome for Mac, and as well as Radio Logic as well. So definitely look into those.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Cam. As of right now, that's all the questions I had captured in my notepad. I do see that a few others have trickled in. Justin, how are we doing on time? Or have any caught your attention looking at the chat here?
Yeah, no, we are definitely still good on time. I'll actually hit a couple of here. I see some licensing talk on new countries that have expanded, some mentions of Australia, some other countries that folks have put on there. Definitely encourage people. We're constantly looking at expanding. The legal aspect is always very tough. We're a very small team. We work very hard. kind of continuing that process of expanding our licensing, expanding everything we can do for those. I definitely encourage folks that, I know I'm kind of a beaten to a broken record right now, but I definitely encourage, even for new countries and licensing of that, to submit those to the feedback portal or the feature request portal, because as we constantly, our team is constantly working on expanding, and we will be continuing to do that. And so the more feedback we get from you guys, since we are a small legal team, we're constantly saying, hey, what can we break off as a chunk? Which one can we go to next? And so if we have a bulk of people that are saying, hey, we really want to be in Australia, or hey, Germany is very important to us, and we see an influx of that, we know that's where we can direct our legal resources and then be able to kind of, be able to make it possible to get into those areas. So definitely encourage, beyond just product requests, like things like that into the feedback report. Definitely very, very helpful. And then there's one other real quick one I actually wanted to address. And actually, Jason, you might be able to talk to this one. Somebody had asked when we will remove restrictions for Canada and UK for selling their own ads.
Yeah, and I answered some of the people I answered directly as well. So I was probably screwing with things a little. But yeah, so the revenue restrictions for Canada and the UK, I'd say we're we're very close on that. We're probably I measured in months, not, and measured in probably not even 3 months. I'd say less than 3 months.
Yeah, it was very close to being something that could have been brought into this into this event here.
Yeah. I mean, it could be even weeks, but it'll depend. There's just ongoing agreement negotiations right now.
I can jump in real quick. I mean, we're getting a ton of questions about using the Live365 automation tools. I think we should definitely, we've talked about it before, but I think we should let folks know that we would like to hold a webinar, for folks that do use the Live365 automation system. And we can talk about some of those tips and tricks and kind of do a deep dive on some of those features. And that's something that Cam, Jason, and myself would, facilitate and definitely hold a session like that. I think that'd be a good one for sure.
Yes, absolutely. For sure. That would be 100% a great future webinar topic. And definitely we can absolutely get that on the board for something going forward.
In the recent chat here, we have a few more questions about music licensing and podcasting. I don't know if John or Jason would like to speak to that at all.
Yeah. So music licensing for podcasts. I think that's something that people are focusing on now. And there are a couple solutions out there. I think the way a solution will work is going to be something like an integration with an app, with Apple, Spotify, all the on-demand guys, integrating just with their API, and then it would require somebody to have a subscription to that service, right? So, I think that's how it would work. It would be something where I would, through their APIs, put the song into my podcast, and the listener, the end user, would need to be a subscriber to one of those services. I don't think you're going to see a lot of people breaking into the on-demand service, on-demand music side of the business. I don't see us doing those deals, at least not the way that they're shaped right now and at their expense. But yeah, Anchor. Someone mentions Anchor.fm lets you do that with Spotify only. For your podcast, you are limited just to the Spotify platform, but that's the direction it's going. So when those guys are opening up their APIs so that you can use them that way, and then you can start building them into the subscription, or I'm sorry, into these podcasts, I think that's where it'll happen. So I'm pretty hopeful that people like us will be able to do those types of things. As far as us directly licensing with those organizations, with the labels, I don't think that's going to happen though.
Got it. Thank you. Justin, how should we proceed?
Cool. I see a couple others here, actually. One, Matt, if you don't mind talking about this one. So this one was about faith-based packages. It was really wrapped around faith-based packages for Iheart. And whether we had any plans for making any faith-based packages that would connect up to Iheart that would be no ads. I don't know if you wanted to talk a second about that, and then about faith-based packages in general.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually saw that question. So the iHeart option would be the broadcast for without ads for $667 a month or $664 a month. and that would get you on. There's no other package at this time. John mentioned, making things available to other stations as they come along. Maybe that's something that we can do. But right now, with such a finite amount of stations that we're able to put on and the demand that we've already had, where we're at right now is at that broadcast 4 price point. And your chances are the hours that you're going to get will fill up there. I will say that I've talked to specifically with All Access about the the faith-based packages, and I would definitely suggest reaching out to allaccess.com as and subscribe. They are really putting a lot of effort into the resources that they're making available to faith-based broadcasters, and they're working with contemporary Christian music, CCM, and worship formats to make more content available as we speak. So it's sort of this growing type of presence, which is long overdue. I mean, if you look next to country, Christian radio is the second largest amount of radio stations in the United States. I'd also just wanted to kind of point out, while our deal with All Access is not completely finalized yet, we're always working to try and make things available. Oftentimes when we're working with third-party vendors or partners, they have a say in what we make available, what they're making available at no cost, right? So it's not for a lack of effort of trying to get as much as we can for everybody. That would be the goal for somebody that was on a BC1, but we have to play by the rules of the partners that we're working with, and nurture those relationships first and foremost, before we can start proving our case to make things available for the other packages. So I just wanted to point that out really quick.
Awesome. Thank you. I do see, actually, I like this one. This is a bit of a tough one. Cam, actually, I'm curious inside of you as someone I'm trying to program a mix of clock wheels and playlist programming. I find it's hard for programs to start on time when using clock wheels. Do you have any advice you can give them for kind of this scheduling difficulty and how to kind of keep everything on that clock?
I mean, when using a mixture, it's a little bit difficult. Maybe Philip has some suggestions here. The only thing I can really think of is for some of the events, you might have to use the strict start for scheduling, which is going to make everything start on time. But the trade-off is it's going to probably cut off the track that's currently playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, it really is a case-by-case situation. We have a wide array of broadcasters with us, a lot of talk programming. We have a lot of sermons and spoken word, as well as some like blocks of material. So depending on how the station's library is set up, sometimes those blocks of material will go over a little bit, which can cause like a trickle forward effect or a trickle down effect where other events start a little bit later and it kind of adds up over time. So again, I'd love to do a deep dive on that kind of stuff. And I think that speaks volumes as to holding another session down the road here. But yeah, to the broadcaster that asked, let us know in a ticket and we'll see how we can help you out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the tough challenge for sure. And I think we will definitely have future webinars for sure on that. Speaking of one that could probably be future webinars, I think this, a selling local ads could be a webinar in itself. And I think that's something we definitely will do in the future and help everyone with that. This question for local ads for brick and mortar businesses, how do they get value for a worldwide stream? I think at least someone who's been in business for a while and seen local businesses, one of the big things that is definitely a very attractive something is if you do have some general traffic in a local area, right? So if my station is targeted towards, I'm in Pittsburgh right now, if most of my listener traffic is in Pittsburgh, that's definitely a very appealing thing for those folks. And so for those brick and mortar ones, I would definitely, my selling pitch to those folks, I would really target on where's my targeted audience. So even if you still are a worldwide stream, obviously all of us are running worldwide unless you're doing massive restriction on your stream, which I wouldn't suggest. So there's always going to be traffic coming in from various different areas, but at least with the pitch with these local brick and mortar places is to kind of find where your traffic is fairly consolidated and focus on kind of those areas. So that's a quick one I wanted to jump through there. And I think absolutely we could do a whole session on local ads, selling local ads, being best practices, how to kind of set everyone up for success for those. And that's definitely something that's on our radar that we'd like to do for everyone. I don't see any other major ones. We have, this one's an interesting one. Any plans to add sound processing or normalization to this? I know it's a little bit John or Jason. I don't know if you want to talk to that. I know this is one that's been on our map.
Yeah. It's another, that it's all of these are great suggestions and feature requests, and every single one of them we've thought about and definitely have on kind of the backlog. And so again, there's the feature request portal, which is where things kind of move up and down on that. The higher they are, the quicker they get done. And we would love to put that in place, and it's something that we're aware that we need.
Definitely. And again, vote up on the feature request board. Definitely can only help. Cool. Awesome. Well, I do have a couple minutes to spare, so I will open the floor up. If anyone has any questions, welcome to take them. I will even crack the beer for happy hour here. So I will open it up. If anyone has any questions, the floor is open. You're welcome to fire away.
Meaning people can unmute and talk? Is that what
Yes.
you mean? Oh,
Hello, I'm Michael
Yes.
from Blind Cafe Radio.
Nice. To
Hey,
meet you.
Michael.
And we're actually still pretty new to Blind Cafe, or to Live365, excuse me. But I do have a question. We are using a third party. We are, with our own encoders and everything as well. And you did recommend that we should back up our music to the auto DJ, and that's fine. But I actually have a question about the scheduling. Now, for example, we have names of our programs and shows and all that. But when I tried to put that in Live365 at that time, we weren't using the auto DJ for a backup. But I just wanted to put our schedule in Live365. Is that possible to put our radio schedule in Live365, even if we're not using it as a backup at this moment, as in throwing the music in there?
Right now, no, but that is a great feature request. Right now, the schedule really only relates to the music you have uploaded to the auto DJ system.
Okay. And then the only other question I had was that I know you guys have tutorials, but where can I go and find those again for the auto DJ?
Help.live365.com.
Okay. You said help.live?
Yeah, help.live365.com.
Live.com. Okay.
Yeah. And we can send a few over in a new ticket too, if you'd like.
Okay, that would be great. I actually put a support in just a little bit ago. I don't know if you'll see it or not.
We will. So yeah, I can send some of those articles your way for sure, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I was wondering, actually, specifically with Matt, and probably it can't be done, but I would love to take advantage of that Iheart distribution. That would be huge. The only thing is, I've poured a number of investments in a number of other things, and for my radio station at this point, and I'm wondering if there's a way to do an a la carte, just the Iheart, because I've got everything else. I don't know if there's a great idea at all.
Yeah, I think that is a great suggestion, and I appreciate that. A la carte is something we've talked about a lot with a lot of things. I don't want to speak for my CEO, but he may have alluded a little bit to some making some of these offerings a la carte, whether that's an app, a player, further distribution. Those are things that we would absolutely love to make a la carte. There are obviously technical developments that would need to go on that. I do want to kind of play the devil's advocate of that as well. While I understand that would be really nice, we really do try to bring as much value to everything. We would love to make this available for someone that's paying $59, right? We really would. So as I mentioned, a lot of what we're offering right now, where there is limitations or hearts, it is essentially dictated by the partners that we're working with. It's a kind of a long-winded answer, but we are looking at a la carte options, as well as how can we include the most for everybody to take advantage of, if that helps.
hopefully they'll open this up, down the road as far as another 100 stations, whatever the case may be. So.
Yeah, we here's the deal. We kind of have to prove our case with Iheart. There's a lot of legal stuff, and I'm not the legal person, and I don't think we need to get into the minutia of that, but there is so much to get the stations onto Iheart. So, if anybody here has tried to get on Iheart, and if you haven't, you kind of got to take my word for it at this point. But it's impossible, and it's a financial lift that any individual station at this point could not afford, because what it takes to do it as an individual. You absolutely can. If you want to reach out to Iheart and do what they're asking for, that is a possibility. But in my 20 years of radio and internet radio, this is a first, that an internet radio distribution company such as ourselves can put stations on. And again, the key thing here is we're covering the licensing. That's what's making all of this possible. And that's why, kind of going back to even what Cam was saying, why metadata is important, why the flow of information is important, because we're paying the licensing on your behalf. Sound Exchange isn't knocking at your door, they're knocking on ours.
Yeah,
So
I think with Iheart, we can straight up say it that, they have insurance requirements basically to protect Iheart from liability that organizations need to have, and they're pretty high. So they're really high for an individual, and for us, it was kind of like, how high do we want to get it, and how many stations can we fold in underneath that amount, and that was a negotiation with them. So it is something that if these 100 work really well, we'll definitely up it if the 100 work well, and it makes sense for us. It's something we want to put more and more stations in there too. So hopefully this is just a first phase.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate that explanation.
No,
The other thing is too is what Matt was talking about with the licensing. More distribution does mean it means more listening, but that also means more TLH. You could easily find yourself, if you're on a lower package and getting on Iheart, you could easily find yourself blowing right through your TLH limit, and then you're stuck with overages and what have you. So it can get messy in a quick hurry.
Yeah. I do want to add one couple of things to the Iheart stuff there, and the a la carte. So first, definitely a la carte is something on our radar to be able to kind of add and make more available to all packages, and so that everyone can kind of pick and choose and customize as much as you'd possibly like to do to be able to make your station as good as possible, for sure there. As Jason kind of mentioned there, yeah, if it was up to us as Iheart, we would love to put everyone onto there for sure. And that's the constant goal. Our goal is to continue to try and provide as much value to all of our broadcasters. I think a good question somebody had thrown into there is, what is the value to us to be able to partnership with Iheart here? The value to us is to be able to allow our broadcasters to be on there, to empower our broadcasters to have better stations. Our focus as a whole at Live365 and Media Creek is how can we empower broadcasters to do their jobs better, to run better stations, to have better quality everything. And so we're really centrally focused on that mission. And so that's where Iheart kind of fits into the benefit to us, is that we're able to help our broadcasters. We're able to get their stations in front of more listeners, no matter what cost is. So that's kind of one of the big takeaways there, for sure. And the big thing that is on our mind always is, how can we help our broadcasters as much as possible? That said, I have a couple minutes left. I probably have room for one last question here. So
I had a quick one. Request from the UK.
Go ahead. I'll take the UK.
I'm a big fan of your work. Been running a station on your platform for a little while now, and it's great to have a one-stop shop for the licensing, as you point out. And it's great to hear you deal with Iheart, but is there anything for a UK broadcaster coming down the road similar to that? And particularly, there is now quite a link up between commercial radio in the UK and Iheart.
Yeah. So I'll
go ahead, Jason.
Take that one. So yeah, definitely. I think distribution in the UK is something that we need to work on. And with Iheart actually does distribute in the UK. With Iheart, though, to talk about the Iheart side, you need to do the deals with each individual organization. We couldn't just roll in Canada and the UK into the deal we did. It was with the US organization. So I would say that, yeah, we will be talking with them. There's another organization that was mentioned maybe earlier on in this in this summit that had some issues in the UK that we're also talking with distribution there. So there are that is something that's a priority for us. And those can sometimes take a while, but it is a priority, and we are actually moving forward with it. So hopefully there'll be something like that soon. And definitely if you have specific ones that you think are places where we should be that aren't necessarily the brand name, aren't the Ihearts and those guys, let us know. You can even shoot it off to as a support ticket, or it'll come get to me that way. But happy to take suggestions on that too.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to that, and I'll keep an eye out.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks.
I had 1 minute left. I know I had one other person speak up. I think, was it JB?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. Just a quick question in regards to the statistics. A lot of people were putting it in the chat, and my entire crew have been asking me frequently about when we will be able to see the IPv4 addresses again, so we can actually distinguish what's a legitimate listener and what's a bot, so we know what to block, what not, so it doesn't burn up TLH.
That I can speak a little bit to it, or Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're going to show IPs again.
Yeah.
And I think that's mostly privacy stuff. So I think that can be fixed some other ways. And I think that's kind of understanding the user agents that are connecting, right? So understanding which ones are bots that are user agents, identifying those, allowing those to be banned. I think that there's a kick feature that we definitely need to be able to kick specific ones, not banning necessarily. So I think between those, where it's like, okay, and we are working on some of that already. We're putting some filters in place for some of the just really well-known bots, just period. So like the ones that we're definitely aware of, we're putting filters in place, so those are not going to be counted. Facebook's probably the biggest, one of the big offenders on that side of things. So there's some nuances to it, but the ones that are very obvious, we are not gonna count towards the TLH. If you're seeing ones that seem to be obvious, and I think you can go in and see some of the user agent connections and those things, and so sometimes those stats can be helpful on discerning that. But I think between kind of us building out the features, also having some of the maybe a kick feature that's something that I think I really want to have too. We can deal with it that way.
I agree with you. And just to tag on to the end of that real briefly, we definitely want to provide more analytics and more stats to our customers for sure. So the ability to kind of drill down or filter, export. I mean, these are some of the top 5 or 10 features that we have on that feature request portal. And it's ones that Justin, John, Jason, and myself have all talked about. So we definitely see that in the future for sure.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I will actually answer one last question here. The beer I have is Icy Light. This is a Pittsburgh staple. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, you got to try one, definitely. If there are any questions that we weren't able to answer, encourage everyone to message us at help@live365.com. We're always happy to answer any questions. Beyond that, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. The community means so much to us. We couldn't do it without you guys, and we look forward to continuing to work to try to make our platform better and make Live365 a great home for all of your stations. So on that note, I will let everyone go. I'll call it adjourn our first ever Live365 Summit. I have no doubt we'll be doing more future ones of this. So thank you to everyone. I hope everyone has a fantastic night and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. See you.